in, Southern California. This is Radio Free Los Angeles. Do you copy? Repeat, do you copy?
Now transmitting from behind the Iron Curtain in the People's Republic of California, we bring you the voice of free men, free markets, and limited constitutional government. Welcome to citizen-sponsored Radio Free Los Angeles with President of the California Taxpayers Union, Mike Alexander, and editor of the Taxpayer Gazette, Jonathan Wilson.
Hello, back with you here, Mike Alexander and Jonathan Wilson, Radio Free Los Angeles. How are you tonight, Jonathan? Hey, great. If people want to be part of the program, where do they call, my friend?
866-870-5752.
Yeah, or you can join in on Facebook. Just enter Radio Free Los Angeles in your Facebook, the appropriate space. That'll take you over there to listen to us. We have a growing audience here. Haven't logged on yet tonight, but we're used to seeing them. We'd love to have you be part of it, of the program tonight. We've got a great program tonight. We have a lot to talk about. We want to continue our conversation about a very successful school choice summit in the middle of the rain last week and some of our upcoming events. We don't have any guests tonight. I want to hear from you folks tonight. We're going to talk about a lot of things. We're probably going to get a little bit philosophical as well. And then, of course, towards the end of the program, that is about 9:20 or so, we will have our ever popular Government Grifter of the Week award. And somebody, I
think we're going to do LAUSD again.
Oh, you got to. These guys are so much fun. It's not even. This is too easy. You know, we ought to be ashamed of ourselves doing something like that, because there's a grifter here, grifter there, grifter everywhere. It just never seems to stop. But the program that we had last week was right after our school choice summit, and since then I have talked with a lot of people, and I can't tell you how enthusiastic they are. The word is spreading, and what I'm talking about here, ladies and gentlemen, if you weren't with us last Sunday night, the 10 people who were with us, that is the 10 people who weren't watching the Super Bowl, have heard a lot of what we talked about. We decided to go back and repeat it because a lot of folks were busy with Super Bowl, and we understand that. But last Saturday, the day before the Super Bowl, we had our School Choice 2020 Summit at the Roman S Room right there in Pasadena. We had about 120 people who had RSVP'd. And then the heavens opened and blessed us with a lot of rain, but that also dampened, how do you like the metaphor? Dampened
That's good, Mike.
turnout.
That's good.
Yes.
You're getting the hang of this radio stuff.
I am. It dampened turnout. We only got about 70 or 75. Can you believe that? It was amazing.
Yeah. And we had a lot of walk-ins, too, I think.
We did. Yeah. And so to all those people who missed it, don't worry. We're going to post another event soon, another summit event in Pasadena, probably be for Saturday, March 9th. So go to School Choice 2020, that's our .org. That's our website. Jonathan is building it out even as we speak here, yesterday and today, and that's where you're going to see all of the information that we have, including how to hold an event yourself. Now, we have a training day coming up for those of you who want to get involved. Jonathan, could you tell the audience about that?
Yes, Saturday, February 23rd, so it's a little less than 2 weeks away.
Yes.
We're going to have 3 training sessions on Saturday in your office. And I've called that the School Choice 2020 Training Center.
There you go. Is that what I got going?
Yeah,
Okay.
we're taking over your office.
All right.
So
all right.
9 a.m., 11 a.m., and 1 p.m.
Okay.
And you can go to our website and register for any of those sessions. And we're going to be equipping school choice warriors for grassroots organization.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
It's going to be a very valuable sessions. So.
Well, and this is going to be pretty simple. Jonathan and I were talking about this before the show. In fact, Jonathan and I talk about very little else these days except school choice and how important it is. And the case for school choice is relatively simple. The initiative is relatively simple. And when you're putting together a marketing program and introducing something to somebody, it's sometimes difficult to communicate just how simple it is.
Exactly.
It's very challenging. Any of you have ever tried to write anything or put together a website? It's always a little tough. And so what do we mean by school choice? First of all, we haven't fully drafted the initiative. The key aspects of the initiative are involve the creation of an educational savings account, which I'll come back to. But fundamentally, this is going to permit the parents to send a child to any school that they choose. That can be their existing public school, a charter school, an accredited private school, or, trigger warning out there for all you secularists, a parochial school, anything that's accredited. Nothing is going to change except for the money is going to follow the child. You, the parents, are going to make the decision about where your child goes to school. So if that public school is not doing the job that you wanted to, you can go down the street to a charter school, or you can go down the street to a private school in your neighborhood, or go to your church school. Could be a synagogue. Of course, there's tons of Catholic schools around. Lots of Lutheran and Anglican and Episcopal parishes have their own schools. Tons of people have schools. Montessori schools are qualified as well. As many different schools as there are families with different ambitions, that's where you can go. So what's it going to be? It's going to be, in effect, a scholarship. And that scholarship is going to follow your child. And your child is going to get a scholarship each and every year. So once this initiative is passed, the state is going to create an educational savings account for every K through 12 student in California. And into that account will be deposited annually or periodically, depending upon when these tax revenues come in, will be deposited an amount equal to the state per pupil expenditure. Very simple. You take the 6.5 million children that there are, divided into the roughly $78 to $80 billion a year that is going into so-called education under the terms of Prop 98, divide that in one number by the other, and that comes out to over $17,000 a year per student. Now, that's it. It's very simple. That money then is it belongs to the child. Now, it can't be spent for goofy expenses, so don't listen to the morons that'll start telling you.
So what if they don't spend $17,000 a year?
That's the key part.
Yeah. So what happens to that extra money?
That money you get to save. Hence, that's why we call it the educational savings account. Okay. You get to save that money. That money can be accumulated to use for other qualified educational expenses, save for college.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And maybe you get through grammar school, but now you want to go through a better, higher quality, more expensive high school, because that's what your child needs. He needs better prep. Maybe your child wants to go to a trade school.
Yeah.
You're going to need specialized education. These schools are going to pop up.
Yeah, I had lunch with someone yesterday who sends their kids to private schools.
Uh-huh.
And so I guess Mayfield School in Pasadena.
Yes.
It's about $26,000
Very
a
expensive,
year. Yeah.
yes.
So that $17,000 would go towards that?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Right. Now, which means that there's a lot of parents who can't afford 26, but they could afford 11.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Right.
Yeah, they could afford 10.
I see.
Lots of kids go to private schools, all around, and they will be able to do that. Now, a lot of parents will send their kids to grammar schools. For example, the Catholic schools don't charge anywhere near that. Their prices will probably go up because now they will be able to afford more. More teachers, better facilities, and to pay their existing teachers more, but it won't necessarily cost $17,000 a year.
And there'd probably be more schools popping up and coming into business.
Absolutely.
I keep telling everyone's so concerned about their school district.
Yeah.
Particularly in San Marino or South Pasadena.
Right.
What's going to happen to our school district?
What
I say is you're going to have some of the best private schools in the country.
That's right.
But
you can have some of the best private schools in the country, but let me tell you that the other thing, this is it, and I can hear the squawky union leaders now. Are you just going to ruin the schools? Why don't you work harder? We need to improve the schools, not tear them down. Well, hey, stand by. I'm about to improve those schools, and I can tell you exactly when those public schools are going to improve. They're going to start improving on 10 o'clock p.m. on election night, the first Tuesday in November 2020, when school choice passes. At that moment, at that time, everybody, including the public schools, will realize that they have to compete for your dollar. And bear in mind that these people at these public so-called schools are going to be the high-dollar alternative. They're very expensive, and they're not very good at their jobs. As you know, California schools are 48th in the nation. In fact, they very quietly published a list of the 700 and some schools in the state of California that are not performing, and to no one's great surprise, 103 or 4 of them were right in the Los Angeles Unified so-called school district. Truly amazing. Truly amazing. Those schools are going to get better, a lot better. And they're going to pay more attention to you as a customer because they have a very expensive plant. Mm-hmm. Now, this is already happening in LAUSD, not school choice, but the decline. Most people don't realize it, but the Los Angeles Unified School District is already in financial difficulties because their schools are so poor, because they're in effect run by unions, right, and work rules hatched in that crazy factory that they call Sacramento. Because of that, lots of students are leaving, and so revenues into LAUSD have declined even at the same time that overall state spending has increased. So there's already a lot of people are leaving the system, or they're forced to move, or whatever. This has terrible effects on the stability of neighborhoods. Property prices are going to increase because there'll be a marketplace response. People come in and start schools. The kids will learn English. They'll be stable there. They'll go to schools that are safe.
And if you don't want to learn about transgenderism, you don't have to.
Thank you, Jesus.
All this gender bending going on in schools now is kind of disturbing.
That's right. Yeah. And these the parents that go there and so forth, they don't want their kids taught that. Yeah. And it's the same for the most recent immigrant who has kids. That guy and his wife feel the same way about their kids and what they're going to learn as I did about mine, or as you folks in the audience do about yours. They don't want these kids learning this garbage. They don't want their 14-year-old daughters carted off to an abortionist without so much as a telephone call to their parents because they believe that they know better than the parents. This is insanity. It's absolute insanity. Now, I can hear a lot of you out there. This is a conservative station, and I know that that a lot of you are out there right now saying, hey, so what's this with schools? I don't have kids anymore, so forth and so on. Can't we get good night, Kathleen? That's Kathleen Wells. If you guys aren't listening to her show, which leads into ours, you're just missing it.
She's on fire.
She is. She had Diamond and Silk on there tonight.
That's amazing.
And they were tearing it up. And what I found, and I know that it's not good talk show practice to talk about somebody else's show, but this Yeah. I'm not in the talk show business. We're in the liberty business here, the freedom business, and I just want to shout out to Kathleen and her audience and her callers, who tend to be pretty black, a black audience there, and boy, some of the callers were calling in, and it was clear that they had figured out what government was doing to them, and what government has done. It might seem that they've done more of it to the black community than anybody else, but the larger point is the same. The government has the same strategy for all of us as it has had on the black community. And these Latinos who are coming here, they don't know any better because of our schools, right? They don't know any better, and they just take whatever it is that's handed to them and give their vote back in return and their loyalty to a party structure. And the results are not going to be any different, because the people who are in charge of that system desire a socialist system. There's no question about it. And isn't it refreshing to hear our president talk about socialism, and to talk about competition, and to talk about the free market, and most importantly, to talk about free choice. It was only around, a 30-second soundbite in this year's State of the Union address, but it was there. And he spoke with it at greater length last year in his 2018 State of the Union address, or was it 17? But he's talked about it plenty during his campaign and during the election. So how do all of these things relate to each other? Well, socialism isn't an event. It's a complex process, and only part of it takes place at the federal level. They can drive policy, they can pass laws, but the delivery system and the focus of socialism is always the schools. It's always the families, folks who are just getting started or having trouble breaking through. It is the place of employment, where historically health insurance has been delivered. So they know that if they give employers mandates, that they can force employees to participate. They can leverage the employees, and they can also induce employers to go along with stupid things like Obamacare, because they're just trying to get along with the government, because they've got more economic exposure maybe than their employees. So it's tough for businesses to hold strong. And in fact, the leverage is so great that the Obama administration actually felt like they could force the Little Sisters of the Poor to pay for so-called women's health care, reproductive health care stuff. Translation, pay for insurance that included premiums for abortion and contraception. These are for the Little Sisters of the Poor, for God's sakes. They are poor. Their money goes right into caring for patients and everything, and obviously they're not married, and have no need of any of that. Plus, they belong they have a religious belief that profoundly objects to such arrangements or supporting it directly or indirectly, one way or the other. But they kept after these poor ladies. They finally had to go all the way to the Supreme Court to get out from under the government. So where does all this business start? Where does socialism get its beginning? How does it strengthen itself? Well, I submit to you folks out there that it all begins and ends with the public so-called school system. And if we look back over the last 100 years of socialism, we can trace it all back about 100 years ago to when public schools really started to take off, and mandatory schooling was put into law in so many places in this country, and we gradually began to indoctrinate the children rather than to educate them. And in the modern era, we can hardly be surprised at what they do. There's a specific sexual ethics agenda trying to redefine the family, redefine human sexuality, and teach things that are actually the very opposite of science. Sex is science. It's not a matter of opinion. You don't have different.
Why do you think that's a priority of theirs to push this gender bending?
I think.
What's up with that?
I think that it all goes back to the practice of communism, socialism, collectivism, and its mortal enemy is the church. And I say this in the broadest
and morals.
sense. And morals, yes. Yeah. And that's what the church represents. When I say the church, I'm not referring to the Catholic Church. I'm talking about the church itself, which is Christianity in all of its expressions, all of its religious expressions. And that includes our elder brothers and sisters in the faith, the Jews. Mm-hmm. So this Judeo-Christian ethic does two things that are inimical to the interests of the state. It establishes that there's a higher power than that of the state, and that the state derives its legitimacy from two places. Number one, it must be consistent with divine law, and number two, it must be consistent with natural law, which in turn flows from the fact of the creation. So those two are related. Number three, of course, is that the Judeo-Christian tradition articulates this thing called the Ten Commandments. It also, of course, at least among the Christian sects, SECTS, the Christian organizations, articulates the belief of Christ, a different world, a world that is oriented to the hereafter rather than here. That there's this, and in and of itself, it proclaims that there's such a thing as right and wrong, as truth and falsity. Now, the modern collectivist movement can't get away from that. We say that men and women are the sons and daughters of God. They say that these are creatures of the state, that they're mere economic units. And this vision, this collectivist vision, accords with the vision that's articulated by the Communist Party, by socialists, by Nazis, who are just another brand of socialism. So the church is their enemy.
So what you're saying, basically, if I hear you correctly, is that communism, socialism, if they can demoralize a people, they can take them over.
That's correct. Yeah, and not only that, it seeks to replace the church or the Bible or religion or the parents as a source of truth, as a source of morality, as a source of organization, and it seeks and it must eliminate the church. It must eliminate what the church does, and most importantly, everybody listen to this now, it means that it has to supplant the family.
Yeah.
And that's what the public so-called schools are. They're government schools which are designed to indoctrinate children and to teach those children.
Demoralize them.
Demoralize
them.
And submit and create an entirely different system of ethics, of right and of wrong, and to alter the relationship between man and woman itself and say, that this relationship is what the state says it is. It's not what it is that is objectively right or wrong. It's not what science says it is. It's not the way that God created them. No, this is the new era. We will redefine reality, and we will tell you what to think. We will tell you what to do. But first, the trick is that you've got to get that kid paying attention to that brain-dead teacher in the school system rather than the child's parents or the pastor or other sources of knowledge out there that compete or conflict with what's being taught in the school. That's the main game. And, now, we'll come back to it in the next half of the. I can't believe that nobody's called. This is strong stuff. If you agree, call in. If you disagree, call in too. I'd love to talk with you. The number is 866-870-5752. And if you want to be part, go to radiofreelosangeles.net and sign up there, CaliforniaTaxpayersUnion.org. Get connected with us. We want to know who you are. We'll be back with you after the half-hour break.
Throughout your day in 2019.
Come in, Southern California. This is Radio Free Los Angeles. Do you copy? Repeat, do you copy?
Now transmitting from behind the Iron Curtain in the People's Republic of California, we bring you the voice of free men, free markets, and limited constitutional government. Welcome to citizen-sponsored Radio Free Los Angeles with President of the California Taxpayers Union, Mike Alexander, and editor of the Taxpayer Gazette, Jonathan Wilson.
All right, time to launch on warning here. Mike Alexander, Jonathan Wilson, Radio Free Los Angeles. Call in and be part of the program, 866-870-5752. And apparently a lot of people have done exactly that.
Yeah, we got 3 calls right off the bat.
Oh, yeah, it's good.
And you can also watch us live on Facebook.
Yes.
Just find our Radio Free Los Angeles Facebook page and be sure to like it so you get our notifications.
Absolutely. Hey, we have Teresa on line 1. Teresa, how are you this evening?
Hi, good evening, Mike.
Thanks for calling in.
Yes, so I just had a question, well, maybe 2 questions, but the question I talked to this call screener about is when, and by the way, I'm on board with this whole school choice
fantastic
stuff, but
good.
I'm wondering, when you say you give $17,000 per child, currently, I don't know the amount of children who are in the private school system.
500,000.
Okay, 500,000.
Right.
So my understanding is, like, let's say the public schools, they only get the money if the student is in the chair.
That's correct.
Okay. So then, that extra, all those students who would now be getting $17,000, like, where's that money going to come from? Is that, you know, that they're going to argue, oh, this is going to cost the taxpayers more money?
It will not cost the taxpayers $1 more under our, and every, I want to be very precise about this. There is a constitutional formula. Let's just say it's 40%. It comes out to more than that of state tax revenue, which is mostly income tax. 40% of that goes to education, period, under Prop 98, which is a constitutional amendment passed many years ago. So that money coming through is constant. It'll just be divided up equally. And the children, the families, will get the money that goes with them. And guess what? Those schools who are not performing, if the public schools are any good, they'll be able to attract and keep the students, won't they?
Well, yes, no, I mean,
right. So keeping those schools running, these failing public schools is not my job. It's not your job, and we're not going to do it on the backs of the children and on their future. The public schools and the teachers and the unions, they had their chance. They blew it.
Right. Oh, so Mike, I'm totally with you, and
yes.
Maybe that's what I'm just not understanding, because I keep hearing the rhetoric that let's say if a student, forget the kids that are going to private school already, but even within the public schools, they need to have those children in the school, or my understanding is somehow they lose funding?
That's right. They lose funding right now. LAUSD is broke right now. Do you understand that?
Yeah,
every school public school district in the state is broke because they promised their people, they've hired too many people, they've paid these people too much overall, promised them lifetime pensions, and they failed to fund them. All these schools are basically insolvent now. And
I would be okay if they all shut down.
Thank you.
That's not
That's
my
right.
point. My point is, like, okay, so I went to private school.
Yes.
And so my understanding is there was no money coming to me because
you were in private school.
Because I was in private school. So
Right.
what I'm saying is, so when you say each kid in private school it's costing, public school, it's costing public school $17,000 to educate each kid in public school, then my question is, when you start giving everybody $17,000, where is that extra money going to come from? That's what I heard you say about
it's
the
not
40%.
extra. It's not extra money. It is the money that's there that's going to be divided equally among all the children in the state. There will be no increase in taxes, not $1.
So
but
are
the
they
schools.
Under this proposition, do they count all the children that are in the educational system, whether they're homeschooled or in a private school as well?
Homeschooling is a little bit different, and I'll tell you what, the governor's numbers are a little bit odd. But based upon what we can tell right now, this is what they say they're doing. So there are roughly. These numbers are a little bit old, but the ratios work. There are about 6 million K through 12 age children in the state. Roughly 500,000 are not in the public school system. Okay, so that means if you divide it up, you basically have about 1/12 of the children who are not in the system, right?
Right.
Okay, so so that money would be reallocated, and maybe the per pupil expenditure goes down a little bit, but it'll probably go up a bit because state tax revenues increase every year, mostly because of the Trump economy. The big Trump bump is actually driving up per pupil expenditures. Okay, so the rising economy is going to take care of any additional money, and the fact is that everybody knows that it does not take $17,000 a year to educate K through 12, does it?
No.
So there's going to be plenty of money there.
Okay,
plenty
so
of money.
I think that's my problem that I'm trying to figure out.
Yes.
It looks like not everybody. All the children will not be receiving $17,000 because that wouldn't. I don't think that would work out.
No, they're all going. No, everybody's going to receive the same. Everybody's going to receive the same. The kid in public school will have a check for $17,000, right?
I think what Teresa's question is that if you add another 500,000 kids to the system, that per pupil expenditure is going to go down.
It might go down, but also go up because these per pupil expenditures have been rising because tax revenues are rising. Do you see what I'm saying, Teresa?
No, I do.
There's more money coming into the system. But
no,
please.
I do, but as a voter, I always hear the arguments against. This is going to cost so much, and it scares people off. And I'm with you. I think it's worth the cost, but I'm just
there will be no additional cost.
Yeah, and I guess
no additional. They will not cost taxpayers $1 more. What they're going to have to do is to fix their schools. They're going to have to fire all these people and change their work. Not all of them. They're going to have to get rid of all the dead weight and decide what they're doing. They're going to have to restructure the compensation, just like every other business. And believe me, that's coming. Teresa, I want to thank you for calling in. I've got a ton of people coming. Don't be a stranger. We'd love to hear from you. Next up, Steve Smith from Eagle Rock. I think I know this guy. How are you this morning, Steve, or this evening, Steve?
Well, I normally see you on mornings, but I haven't seen you in the morning for a long time.
I know, and I miss singing with you guys.
Hey, I'm getting so frustrated. I have to vent a little bit because I have a new congressman. His name is Jimmy Gomez.
Oh, yeah.
And I went to a town hall on Saturday.
Yeah.
And I'm so depressed I can't see straight. So I guess socialism does depress one.
It
oh,
does.
My goodness. I could not believe that there was actually somebody that was farther left than my old Congressman Javier Becerra.
Yeah, old Comrade Becerra, yeah.
Well, it seems that this particular fellow, before he took up politics, was a community organizer for public employee unions. So can you take a guess where he's coming from?
As far left as he can get. Yeah,
and he was one of the endorsers, sponsors for the new Green Deal.
Fantastic. These people are crazy, but as you know, and I want everybody to pay attention. We look at this, and a lot of people have been talking about it. We look at this, what do they call it, Green New Deal, whatever, and we say to ourselves, well, this is ridiculous. Why would these people think that this could succeed? Well, the answer is because they brainwash their students, K through 12, and they teach them there, and they have no doubts that when they turn 18, how they're going to receive this and vote for it. And they've been at this for at least on the environmental scam, they've been on this scam for 40 or 50 years. So they have several generations of publicly educated government kids that go to government schools, and they choke this stuff down, and then they're prepared. They go on to the universities. That's where it comes from. So we need to attack all of these problems. There's almost no problem in America they cannot be traced back to the government schools. And there's almost no problem in America that doesn't get better when we get rid of the damn things.
Well,
take our kids back.
I'm sorry, Mike. What's most scary going to a meeting like that is you're listening to the reactions of the people in the room. And because of what's happened to education, we're, 2-3 generations into this brainwashing now.
Yes.
And people who are good, decent people just don't know the difference.
That's correct. It was Ronald Reagan and many other people have said it. It isn't that crazy whack job liberals say things that are untrue. It's just that the things that they think that they know just aren't so. They're not always deliberate lies. Ultimately, there's someone up there that tells a lie and it permeates the system. But now we have youngsters here who honestly have no idea what the hell's going on, and that's because of the public so-called schools. Yeah.
Well, it's been talked about since the time of our founders, and Reagan certainly talked about it, but we have absolutely failed to teach our rising generation what it means to be an American and what it means to be free.
That's correct, and that's the most urgent requirement for our schools, and school choice is a step in the right direction. Steve, I want to thank you for calling in tonight and for your ongoing editorials, and I look forward to having you on here real soon. We'll talk about
if I can throw out one more stat from the newspaper this week, and that was the report from the State of California Board of Education.
Yes.
And it seems that LA Unified has 104 schools that needs to be shut down because of their underperformance.
And by the way, I cited
unbelievable.
I cited that statistic just a few minutes ago, and everybody should know that the guy who brought that to my attention is the guy who's calling. And you're absolutely right. 700 and some schools, and 104 or 5 of them are right here in LAUSD. Thanks, Steve. Talk soon, my friend. Next up is Pamela from Culver City. How are you this evening, Pamela?
I'm doing great, and yourself?
Great. Thanks for calling in. Is this your first time calling in?
No, it's probably about my third time.
Oh, okay. Well, boy, I didn't catch it. Shame on me. It's great to hear from you. Fire away.
I agree with the school choices, and I also like the point you made about the kids in school being brainwashed and the state trying to take over our kids' mind.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to know, I'm just curious, do you think it's a person or a system that masterminded this whole thing? Because it's been going on for years, and I'm just curious, how did it come up with this plan?
Yeah, well, I think that we can trace it back to a number of factors. Let's deal with the good reasons first. There are many and excellent reasons for education. I think there is a shared understanding among most thoughtful people that we ought to educate the young. This is a tradition in Western society. We've done it different ways over the last 2,000 years, but over the last 100 years, it seemed that the best way to do it was to set up schools, and that society, through the vehicle of government, society ought to provide that education for children. So you're starting off, as with so many things, with a really good premise. There are other many good premises. That is that no one ought to go hungry, right? No one ought to be ill and not be able to obtain medical treatment. There are many and other good reasons why society does things, but those good things then get perverted to another end, and this is what happened with schooling in the early part of the last century. In the progressivists, particularly John Dewey and others who had come to dominate the new American education, both at the university level and at the elementary and high school level, had a different vision. They were going to have to create a new man for a new century, and that new man was going to have to be equipped for the future. It was a brand new changing era. And the other people who joined in with them were the barons of industry. As we were moving into the next phase of the Industrial Revolution, with the rise of manufacturing and consumer goods and a very complex society, there were many people who felt that we had to push kids into schools, and we had to equip them to participate in this big machine. It was a very collectivist notion. This fact did not escape the attention either of the communists or of the Nazis, who were just another brand of socialism, and they too recognized that they were going to have to take control of the young very early on and teach them what they wanted them to do. And all of these people had a very different idea of what youngsters really needed, and that is that they needed education and knowledge so that they could participate in the economy, that they had no eternal existence, that there was no life beyond that of the state. In other words, there's no eternal life. There's no God. They took the God business out of there, and they systematically eradicated prayer and everything else. And, of course, my objection has never been to having God in the classroom. My objection has been to government in the classroom. It's government that has no place in that classroom, not God. Whether God gets in that classroom is up to the parents and up to the schools that the parents choose. So that's the motivation. They want to control us. It's as simple as that. And there isn't one guy or one group of people. It's a whole generation. And believe me, it's not just Democrats. It's Republicans too. And I tell you right now, if Republicans were in every statewide office, and if they owned and operated every city council, school board, and the whole state assembly and Senate, we still wouldn't have school choice, because none of them believe in that. They like big solutions. Pamela, I want to thank you for calling in. We got some other callers up here I want to get to. Next up is Mike from El Segundo. How are you this evening, Mike?
Hi, fine. Thank you very much. As you know, I'm a former El Segundo City Councilman.
I do.
No. Right. Thank you. Thank you very much for helping to bring up about the March of Socialism and Communism here in America, and especially in California.
Yes.
It seems that the Democrat Party is getting bolder and bolder, and that they're greatly accelerating their agenda to establish their Marxist dictatorship.
Yes.
And they're not only moving forward on gun control, and I'm seeing a lot more fake news, anti-gun fake news. It's just totally false about the Second Amendment, about crime. They use language like gun violence to combine suicides with homicides to artificially inflate the numbers. And then they talk about gun violence when, they talk about also gun safety when it has nothing to do with safety. It has to do with banning and confiscating firearms. And the Democrat Party they've adopted the Nazi program that Hitler used, that his National Socialists used to disarm the Jews before moving forward with the actual arrest and sending to the concentration camps the Jews for the Holocaust. Right. And that's the three-step program to register and then to ban and then to confiscate the firearms.
Correct.
And the Nazis used that. Under the Weimar Republic, before Hitler rose to power, they already had a gun registration law, and then Hitler and his Nazis expanded on that to pass a law to ban guns for all but their most loyal supporters. And then they raided the homes and businesses of the Jews and confiscated the guns. And that's the exact same agenda that the Democrats are following here, because they know they cannot do it all with one law. In fact, even the banning they're doing through incrementalism, through succession laws, and then same with confiscation. They've already banned various firearms, and they're misrepresenting them as machine guns. They call them assault weapons. Those are just traditional semi-automatic firearms that fire one bullet per trigger pull. Yes. They look like military weapons, but they don't function like military weapons.
No.
And even on the subject of military weapons, the Second Amendment explicitly protects firearms that are suitable for militia use. In fact, as a minimum, the Second Amendment recognizes and protects the right of citizens to keep and bear firearms that are dual-use, non-crew served weapons. So that would include all types of rifles, handguns, and shotguns. It may actually even include machine guns. It's not clear, but it may even include firearms that are primarily suitable for militia use. But the main point is the founders wanted an armed citizenry that could oppose a standing army, if necessary, defeat it, if the standing army was ordered to oppress the people, to support a tyrannical government.
That's right.
And the Second Amendment is by far the most important part of the Constitution. The founders are brilliant. They put in many different protections in there, from limited, enumerated, or listed powers of government, which are greatly exceeded by Democrats and by Republicans over the years. And they put in separation balance of powers. They put in equal voting power suffrage in the Senate. The bicameral legislative system is part of the system of checks and balances. Right. They also put in the Electoral College. It helps. It does several useful things. It prevents a demagogue with just regional appeal, for example, East and West Coast only, from becoming president. They need support from around the country.
That's right.
And something the founders may not have intended that works well is the Electoral College limits the election fraud and theft to individual states.
Right.
So if the Democrats stuff the ballot box and cheat in Chicago, it'll have no impact on the national election result for president. Yeah. Because Illinois' Electoral College votes are, as winner takes all, are already all going for the Democrat candidate.
I quite agree. And the point, but I think just to link it back to the theme of this show, the biggest and most egregious example of ballot box stuffing is actually the K through 12 program. Because
you're brainwashing the kids. You're absolutely
correct.
Right. That's brilliant. You're so correct.
Yeah.
You're brainwashing the kids, indoctrinating them instead of to be Americans, to be anti-Americans.
That's
and
correct.
And to vote for anti-American socialist and communist Marxist Democrats.
That's right.
The fact that the Democrats are not even trying to hide now that they're socialists. They're hiding that they're communists. Okay, like Bernie Sanders is actually communist, posing as a socialist, running as a Democrat. He's actually communist.
All right.
And a bunch of the others are also.
Mike, I've only got 90 seconds. I've got Christoph on line one. Christoph, please hang on. We're going to take you after the 9 o'clock hour, but I want to take this opportunity to respond a little bit to what Mike was saying. We had Linda Payne on last week talking with the Election Integrity Project. And Linda, if you're listening, I really want to thank you again Did we send out the podcast on that last week?
We did.
Excellent. You got to listen to it if you're on our list, because she talks about the incredible work they've done. In fact, I'm going to come back and mention her good work again, because a lot of people weren't listening last week because of the holidays.
Yeah, I think definitely listen to that if you didn't get a chance to listen to it. You can go to our website, schoolchoice2020.org, and just click the Radio Free LA tab.
Got it. But how many seconds here? 45 seconds. Just on 45, I want to say that that the election, stealing elections, involves about 2% of the vote. They use the public so-called school system in order to get them close. And so we need to start dealing not only with the 2% that's stolen, but the 48% that is indoctrinated away from us. This is Mike Alexander and Jonathan Wilson, Radio Free Los Angeles. We hope that you will stay with us for the next half hour. Go to radiofreelosangeles.net and become part of our program. Thank you. See you in just a few minutes.
When it comes to your pain, many of you might be skeptical, like I was, about ordering Relief Factor. Pat Boone again for this wonderful 100% drug-free supplement designed to help your own body lower or eliminate occasional aches and pains due to aging, exercise, everyday living. I'm not skeptical any longer. The 3-week quick start is now discounted to only $19.95.
Come in, Southern California. This is Radio Free Los Angeles. Do you copy? Repeat, do you copy?
Now transmitting from behind the Iron Curtain in the People's Republic of California, we bring you the voice of free men, free markets, and limited constitutional government. Welcome to citizen-sponsored Radio Free Los Angeles with President of the California Taxpayers Union, Mike Alexander, and editor of the Taxpayer Gazette, Jonathan Wilson.
All right, back with you, Mike Alexander, Jonathan Wilson, Radio Free Los Angeles. If you'd like to be part of the show, please call in at 866-870-5752. And we want you to remember that this show is listener-supported. It is citizen-supported. Now, to support this wonderful effort, where should they go, Jonathan?
Go to CaliforniaTaxpayersUnion.org and click the Join Contribute button.
There you go. Yeah, every little bit helps. It's what keeps us on the air, and it's what is helping to really launch this tremendous effort to get our children back and to get our money back, so we take our country back. It's as simple as that. Now, I'd like to return here. We've got one caller who held over from before. We'd like to get to him right now. We have Christoph from Echo Park. How are you this evening, Christoph? Thank you for waiting.
Thanks for taking my call.
Sure. Fire away, my friend. What's your question or your comment?
My question was, how am I forgot my question. I should ask.
Well, can I help you? It says here, clarify what happens in the public schools. That's what the call screener took down. Is that?
Yeah. I'm trying to make sense of all this with what you're saying. It's my first time even hearing your show.
Okay, and that's fine.
Yeah, you're saying that. You're saying something about the public schools. I've been in public school my whole life, and I'm just trying to make sense of what happened to me, pretty much is what I was trying to say.
Well, how did it work for you? May I ask how old you are?
I'm 32.
Okay, so you went to public schools
all throughout Los Angeles.
All the way through in LAUSD. Well, did you go on to college from there?
Excuse me?
Did you go on to college from there? Did you feel you were prepared by your high school experience?
Definitely not.
Ah, okay. So I would assume that you would agree with us that these schools need to improve.
Yes, very much so.
Right.
So, yeah, I'm just trying to make – and then you're saying something about brainwashing.
Oh, yeah.
It's starting to make sense to me, and I'm just trying to get a peace of mind and clarify kind of what happened to me in my experience throughout K through 12.
Sure. Yeah, well, there's no question, you're 32. You're a little younger than my youngest son. So I have some idea about what the schools were at the time that you guys are going through, pretty much the same time. Mm-hmm. And these schools out there were then and are now about almost everything but education. How do we know that? Because the schools here in California are 48th. So they're in the country, and that's with their own phony baloney testing. So they have a habit of pushing people from one grade to the next. They want you in that chair there every day because they get paid when you're there in the chair. And those revenues are what matter to the most. Now, ironically, in the Los Angeles Unified School District, their revenues are already declining without competition because more and more people have been leaving the system, leaving the city, taking upon themselves a tremendous financial burden of educating their own children in private schools, and this is not easy for family. And there are many reasons why they're doing it. First of all, the children are not mastering basic educational, achieving basic educational proficiency in math, in reading, in the social sciences. They have an active political agenda. For example, constantly importing political controversy into the school agenda. So, for example, so-called climate change or global warming, whatever the phrase is of the day. They insist upon a new and revolutionary kind of sex education, which blurs the differences between the sexes and introduces really their own sexual morality into the system. And for what I understand, there's even some places that try to teach children, even as young as kindergarten, first or second grade, how to evaluate their own sexuality. These are kids who can't even, figure out how to get their zipper up half the time.
Yeah, it makes no sense.
Huh? Go ahead.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense.
It makes no sense whatsoever. By the way, are you married yet, Christoph?
No, I'm not.
Yeah, but sometime in the immediate future, you may be contemplating starting a family and having kids, and then all of a sudden, whatever it is that you think or believe is being contradicted at the schools. Now, if it's not, under our proposal, you can continue to send your children to those public schools. As we like to say, if you like your public school, you can keep your public school. If you like your public school teacher, you can keep your public school teacher. No problem. But if you don't like what your children are being taught, or you don't think that they're proficient, if you don't think they're being prepared for college or for a trade, right? Lots of young men and women really are looking to get themselves a good trade and get to work at 18 rather than running up debt in college and maybe doing something that they're not ready to succeed at or just don't want to do. Lots of people don't go to college. My oldest son did not go to college. He's very successful. He chose to do other things. These things happen. So that's what we're focused on, Christoph. And these people, the fact is $17,000 a year. You're in Echo Park, so you must know Loyola High School downtown, right?
Yep. Okay,
it's one of the best high schools in the country. There's no question about it. It's been around. It's founded in 1865. And
I went to Claremont High School though.
Oh, you went to Claremont. Okay.
Yes.
But you know about Loyola High School, and there are many other private schools around who don't charge much more, even now in a period of inflation, don't charge much more than that to attend their school. So the very best schools don't cost much more than $17,000 per year. And clearly, they ought to be turning out the best of the best in K through 12. At least K through 8, it just doesn't cost that much to put the kids in there.
$17,000 a year per student?
That's correct. That's how much the state is spending. Now, I can already hear, the union people and a bunch of school teachers, administrators are getting ready to call in. Mr. Alexander, you're misleading people. We don't get that much money. Blah, 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 blah. Well, the fact is the state of California spends that much per student. Whether it actually gets all the way down to the student and into the classroom depends. And that's the problem, isn't it, Christoph? They don't manage the money well. They've got all the money. You and I as taxpayers are paying, on average, $17,000 a year per student. That's for fiscal year 18 and 19. And all that money gets stepped on. It gets that's a drug term, as you know. Gets chipped away at. They hire people that are unnecessary, or they pay certain people more money than they should and pay other people less money than they should. For example, some teachers. And so this whole system is being managed by unions. They're being managed by politicians, and they are immune from the laws of competition because you simply can't go anywhere else. And all we want to do is to give families the ability to choose, and there's no choice, financial ability to make that choice. And so that's why we want to change this, because when you start your family, I want you and your wife to be able to send your kids to a quality school knowing that they're going to be taught the things that you want them to learn, and that that they don't teach a communicate a vision of America that you don't share. Why should you have to tell your kids something about what you think about this country, only to have the teachers fight with you during the school and undermine everything that you're teaching your children at home? It's insane.
Right. Yeah.
It's insane. It's not right. And there's no reason why we Americans should have to put up with it. And then we also have the other problem in our state. Excuse me. Had to clear my throat there. The other problem that we have is that we're bringing tons, hundreds of thousands, millions of people here from other countries. Now, most of the children that they have, because they're born here, are by definition Americans. They're American citizens, but they're a long ways from being American because their family situation is by definition foreign, right? It's mostly Mexican here. So if we're going to achieve assimilation in our system, we have to make sure that these children, and indirectly their parents, are being taught something different about our system, taught about the values of our country, the importance of our free enterprise system, what the parties are. You know what I mean? Go ahead.
Yeah. Are those kids' parents mostly taxpayers or not? No.
Well, who's the taxpayer?
Excuse me?
Yeah, well, I say, who's the taxpayer? What kind of taxes? They probably don't. In fact, parents, if we look at the populations as a whole, younger populations, whether citizens or not citizens, legal or illegal, younger populations, that is, parents of young children, tend to make less because they're earlier in their careers, right? So they're not paying as much. And some of them don't pay any state or federal income tax at all. And that applies across the board, regardless of ethnicity, regardless of the country of origin. They pay less money overall. But over the years, because education is funded mostly by income tax here in the state of California, over the years, as their children get out of school and they move on in their jobs and professions and businesses, they will continue to pay income taxes, which 40 to 50% of which will go for schools, even though they no longer have children in the schools. So they, even though they don't pay taxes now, they will definitely pay them later. Do you see what I mean? And so you're going to pay taxes here in the state of California for the rest of your natural life. There's no, or excuse me, the rest of your earning life. And even people on Social Security have to pay taxes on that income. So all this money is going into the to the schools, and yet you're not getting the help that you need when you need it for your children. That's the point. You have to get your children educated up and out and responsible, and instead, in fact, Jonathan and I were talking about that here earlier tonight, is that that these parents not only end up putting the kids through schools, but they end up having to pay additional money to go to quality colleges, when under our program they could be accumulating that money from K through 12 and use it intelligently in college and avoid either going into the children, young students going into debt in college, or the parents going into debt to pay for college. So we've got to get out of this debt cycle, and we have to get better informed citizens. And here's the thing. You and I, as taxpayers, Christoph, one way or the other, we're paying for that mess. And what do we get? Well, my children are no longer in the school system. In fact, they were never in the public school system, but I continue to pay taxes. Now, what do I want for my money? Well, what I want for my money is for all those children to learn, because I need them to learn, don't I? Yeah. You and I need no matter where these kids came from, we need them to be educated. We need them to learn about our system. We need to know that these populations are not going to be dependent. We need to do everything that we can to get them a good education so they can participate fully in our economy and participate fully in our democracy. And that is not happening right now. And no matter how old you are, no matter if you haven't had a kid in the system for 50 years, you still have a vested interest in making that happen, because whether we like it or not, whether we intended it or not, those children are our future in addition to their future. And that's why it's vital, it's important that we get them out of there and get them into performing schools where they're best positioned to excel and to achieve in life, and to gain the skills that they need to control the government. Because one of the top problems that we have is the government takes these kids even before kindergarten, and they give them all this money, and they feed them and the medical care and everything else, and they start looking to the school as their parents, right? And then all of a sudden at age 18, when they're able to vote, all of a sudden they're supposed to develop intellectual independence, a habit of independent thought, and they're supposed to now become critical of government and to be the citizens that manage it. And you see that that's not happening.
Do you consider that dumbing them down?
Oh, yes, absolutely, quite deliberately.
Wow.
Quite deliberately. There's no question about that at all. That part is intentional because they want to keep the great big political voting machine going. Not just Democrats either. This applies equally to Republicans as well. Everybody wants that outcome. Now, I don't want to to make anybody vote my way in the schools. That's not it. But what your children learn should be what you want them to learn, and not what a bunch of union leaders want them to learn, or even the teachers. You have a right to choose the teachers. You have a right to choose the school. And there isn't anything. Go ahead.
Full spectrum knowledge.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You know, there was a time in this country before public schools, and Alexis de Tocqueville, oh, heck, I'm coming up on 9:24, Christoph. I have spoken too much. I want you to call me again, my friend, right now. And stay tuned now. I want you to call back, but now it's time for the government grifter of the week.
Maestro.
Ba-da-da-dum, ba-dum.
There you go. And now, live from Glendale, California, it's this week's Government Grifter Awards.
All right.
With nominations yet again from Los Angeles Unified School District.
Where else?
It's the gift that keeps on giving.
Yep.
All right, so our first nominee is the Executive Director of Office of Data and Accountability.
Huh?
The Executive Director, Office of Data and Accountability.
I mean, okay, I hear the words, but I'm not sure how data and accountability go together.
Right.
But anyway, maybe he'll call us.
Yeah.
All right, next.
So 2017 total pay and benefits for the Executive Director of Office of Data and Accountability, $200,000 a year.
Woo! Wow.
Doing pretty well.
Yeah. He's doing a lot of accounting. Right.
Our second nominee is Special Services Temporary Advisor.
What?
I don't know.
Special Services Temporary Advisor. Okay.
Yeah. $205,000 a year.
Whoa.
Total pay and benefits.
Jeez.
That's a temporary advisor.
A temporary. Yeah. I don't even want to hear what the permanent guy's making.
And you're going to love this. You're going to love this, our third nominee.
Yeah.
The Chief of School Choice.
Wait, hold it. Who's this?
This is a...
is this LAUSD?
Admin position in LAUSD.
No.
The Chief of School Choice.
You're making this...
I wanted to name you the Chief.
Job.
And you'd probably like their salary.
How much is this clown getting?
Almost $196,000
Whoa!
a year.
Wow. Hey, that is amazing. Now, I really want to know what that guy does.
Yeah.
All right.
We got to have him on the show.
We do.
We're the voice of choice.
Voice of choice.
He needs to call in, the Chief of School Choice.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We're assuming it's a he.
Yeah.
It could
be a he or she.
A she or a he,
well,
she.
You never
whatever
know.
they got going on over there.
All
at
of the
LAU.
above.
Yeah. He may be transitioning.
Yeah, you never
know. All right.
Drum roll, please.
Drum roll, please.
And the winner of this week's Government Grifter Award goes to the Chief of School Choice.
Oh, yeah. A sentimental favorite.
Congratulations, Chief of School Choice. This is your first nomination and your first Grifter Award.
That's right. And don't forget to call us because we want to know what you do for that kind of money. Believe me. All right. Now, how many more minutes do I have? Or seconds? I got about 90 seconds. First of all, I want to welcome Kevin back to the board. He was with us for several months, and then we had I wouldn't say a replacement. Nobody could replace Kevin. Yeah, exactly. We had Jeff in here for a while. Brooke, our screener, is back on the phones tonight, and it shows everybody's been calling in. Thanks so much. And Basil Hoffman, of course, who does records our lead-ins and all that, and especially you, the audience. You're a wonderful audience. We're very lucky to have you, very thrilled with the response that our program has been getting, and we hope that you will connect with us and let us know your thoughts, criticisms, whatever. Go to RadioFreeLosAngeles.net and sign up there. It's going to be fun. And don't forget to check on SchoolChoice2020.org for information on the upcoming training programs. When are they again, Jonathan?
February 23rd, Saturday, February 23rd in Pasadena.
We're already getting sign-ups now, and I'll be there with you personally. Can't wait to see you. Let's get this battle started here. So remember, we can't take our country back unless we first take back our children, take back their hearts, their minds, their souls, and our money. See you next Sunday night, same time, 8 to 9:30. Mike Alexander, Jonathan Wilson, over and out.